Hey Marie, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing great. Audience, we have Marie Miller, founder of House of Kellen. Yes, we're glad you could join us. Tell our audience where you're joining us from today.
I'm coming to you from Columbus, Ohio.
Uh-huh. Yeah, definitely. Well, tell us a little about yourself and kind of the light you're bringing to the world.
So, I'm a theta healing instructor, which means I teach people how to become practitioners if they want to either heal themselves or heal their clients. And the modality is based in the premise that your body is a reflection of your belief systems and the belief systems of your ancestors. And so we spend a lot of time going into what do you believe on a subconscious level, like what did you believe when you were 5 for 3 minutes that you forgot that you believed, or what did 20 generations ago, what did your ancestors believe, and just looking at how those things are throwing a wrench in your health, your life, your manifestation currently.
Mhm. Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, kind of give us a little idea about, because I understand, but I found the house, the name itself, the House of Kellen, kind of how it kind of developed and about, kind of going back a little bit in your history.
So I've been psychic my whole life. Not everyone is aware of it. I got run over by a car when I was 3 and had a near death experience, and that opened up my gifts. So
Okay.
I've been seeing ghosts since I was really little. And when I was 12, I was living 3 minutes in the future and annoying my sisters with that and telling them that their stupid boyfriend was calling and making jokes about it. And but as I was growing and learning, I realized one of my spirit guides is my great grandmother, Christina Kellen, and she's from a place in Luxembourg called the House of Kellen. It was in this cute village. I actually found it when I went there, but my Luxembourgish is really bad, so I did not knock on the door. But I found the actual ancestral home called the House of Kellen, and since my gifts came, from that, some of my gifts came from that ancestor. I named my business after her.
Well, how you track this down?
My mom is a really good historian. We came from a Catholic background, so like everything was written in the family Bible.
Okay.
So going back, we have a lot of histories of the births and deaths, and knowing that she was my guide, that came through another psychic when I was first exploring up in Cleveland, who was like, "I see this person here," and then I learned how to connect to my guides for myself, and actually got to be in communication with my great great grandmother.
Wow, that is interesting. Do you still have contact?
Yeah, she's still around. Yeah, and actually, one thing that I've learned from from being a medium is that the place that people go after they die is outside of time. So everyone's there all the time, and so no one's ever really lost. Once you learn how to access it, you can literally go talk to anybody, even if they've reincarnated, because it's outside of time, so they're there.
Right. Please expand on that because you talk about it like it's just kind of something everybody knows about. It's just what we know. But speaking as a person and a black guy who's from New York, but his people, my mother is from the South of in North Carolina. And so
Hmm.
there's some religious things that are at play here. That it took me to learn a lot of things that were not, that the things you talk of couldn't be possibly true. That
And
and so.
I love that you brought that up because actually my little sister and I actually had a debate going for about 5 years where her religious beliefs made me
Mhm,
feel like my life was invalid and that like
mhm,
the things that I were doing weren't real. And
mhm,
coming from a really religious family, I understand the struggle when your mind opens to just new things that can be possible and
mhm,
having to reconcile with what the church teaches us.
exactly.
I was really blessed that my mom came from a particular branch of Catholicism that believes in miracles. In her hometown, everyone would say about my grandmother, "Oh, if Margaret prays for you, her prayers work the best,
Mhm,
so you'll heal if she." So that was a way to acknowledge that there was some sort of a magic in our lineage without
mhm.
it being too woo or too outside the church.
Right, right. What we're trying to do now is educate people that it's not woo, it's
Exactly.
actually science. You
Yep.
know, and the thing is, but the thing, it's just the struggle because again, I could probably make, and I have touched on things in other podcasts about how, the energy healing and how we're linked into some of the miracles that we see with Yeshua in the Bible. And I'm a Reiki healer, so I've gotten a little more education on these things. And so it really contradicts with what I was raised. And I've learned a lot since then. And so coming from Christian, I mean, I'm sure that, like, they don't believe in reincarnation. It's I'd be here kind of elaborating on things. So to know that a person's, but they still know that spirit, everything's energy, and it's always eternal. But then there's this theory about where it goes.
Well, and I stay really open about where it goes, right? My personal belief is you're going to go wherever you think you're supposed to go. So it really has to do with like where you are in that moment of moving on, and that we can create different experiences in the next phase. I don't believe that someone's assigning it to us, but that's just my personal belief. I think we kind of have some say in where we go afterwards.
Right. But I've actually had an experience and actually showing something now where we have this kid, and he's 8, but he's really had this presence about him since he was much younger, and now his mother has started paying attention to the point that he tells about his past lives, and he's elaborating on he's really kind of persistent with the fact that he wants her to know that he picked his coming back here, and he kind of gives stories about his last experiences, but he says this is his last time that he can reincarnate. And a lot of people, well, where would a kid, he doesn't know anything about this, he's just speaking. But a lot of times, within our society, a lot of times people don't listen to these kids. They tell them it's just their imagination, and just brush it off, and don't actually know that these kids can actually still be in touch with themselves.
Yeah. I was really blessed to have a mom who was accepting of my gifts. But one thing that I've noticed and I've learned, and actually my teacher, Viana Steibel, as actually writes about it in some of her books, is that we come in a theta brainwave. So like until kids reach about the age 7 or 8, they're actually really tapped into their spiritual gifts, even if they don't call it that, or even if they're not aware of it. So there is that deep connection. But then as we learn how to be human and deal with this whole planet that we're on, we sort of like lose that connection to the divine that we're born with and have to reclaim it through training.
Exactly. That's exactly my understanding on these things. We just kind of forget that we remember.
Yep, absolutely. And that's my job as a teacher, is to help people remember like the power that you had in your other existence in this previous incarnations, and also help people remember that they can go to God and ask for what they need.
That's powerful. Tell us more about the theta healing.
It's pretty magical. I actually discovered it because I was looking for something. I knew I wanted to be an alternative healer, but nothing was really resonating. And it was the one thing that cured my migraines, because I'd had daily migraines for about a year until I found this one theta healer. And I'm like, well, this is my jam. And then I took some classes, started being a practitioner, and a friend of mine's like, I wish I could do what you do. I'm like, I'll teach you. Didn't know if I'd like being a teacher, which I kind of laugh out now because I love it. But it's, again, it's called theta healing for 2 different reasons. Number one, because it means soul healing, the word theta. So we're actually healing the soul. And also because the work is done in a theta brainwave. And so my teacher, Viana, she actually had like the electrodes on her head and was testing it when she first began. And one of the things that she also noticed is, when we're in a session, we're both in a theta brainwave. But when the healing actually happens, the person receiving will go into a delta brainwave, which is, where the real deep healing happens for like a split second. So it's really beautiful that she took the time to map out all the science behind it.
Okay. How are you getting into this depth of theta? Meditation or things, something like that?
Yeah, she worked out a meditation that with enough practice helps you go into that theta brainwave almost instantly. The first class that we teach people, I warn people not to schedule any activities in the evenings and to make sure that you're resting because it will mess with your sleep cycle when you first learn how to do it because you're learning to be in that deep REM cycle while you're talking and conscious. So it takes practice and it does change your body because it has a deep effect being in that state while being awake. And the goal is, of course, to go back to when we were like 2 years old and pretty much constantly in that state,
Mhm.
but doing that as adults.
Mm. Kind of like resetting yourself.
Yep, pretty much.
Wow, that is magical. I mean, and how would this help with people who have insomnia problems? Because you kind of getting them into a relaxed state.
Well, you would look at what is the energy around the insomnia, like what is the root cause of it? Because there's so many
Right.
different reasons for people to have it. So you definitely want to look at what are the root causes of what anxiety people are having, or also I like to refer to other modalities too, and see like using an organ map to see if there's a particular organ that's being really loud and keeping
Mhm.
them awake at night. Because there is
Right.
a pattern too, and this is actually going into Chinese medicine, which I'm not an expert at, but which I refer to.
Mhm.
They've learned that your energy moves through different organs, different times of the day and night. And so if there's a disturbance, like falling asleep or being awake,
Mhm.
that if you heal that organ, that energy will go away.
Oh, most definitely. I'm a Reiki practitioner.
Okay,
So
so you know more about that than I do. I
yeah,
just look up the charts to help my clients so I know like what to work on.
yeah, yeah. It's telling you something. It's giving you a message in that
Yeah.
part of the body with your chakra areas, and it's
Mhm.
telling you just have to listen. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. Well, I should have backed up a little bit. I saw something interesting. You studied with a shaman.
Hmm? I
You studied.
did. Yes, when I was in college. When I was back here in Columbus. Yeah, it was a pretty magical time.
Yeah.
He described himself that was like a darker shaman, and he started to teach me some spells, some things for revenge, and that's when we parted ways. But I got 2 years of really amazing lessons from him,
Mhm. Mm.
and that
Yeah.
kind of set me on the right path.
Right.
Yeah.
I've heard these stories about shamans, being able to transform and things of that nature. So it can get kind of deep.
It can, and I'm really glad to have that deep, and especially like going into the darker areas because I really love helping people with dark heavy things. I think it helps that I've been seeing ghosts since I was 3 and I'm not afraid
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
of these darker
Exactly.
energies. Yeah.
Right. Well, the thing is I know I'm in the energy business. I have to do a lot of things about energy protection.
Mhm.
And the thing is, when we're healing people, you are dealing with some energies that can be darker. And
Mhm.
it's just the nature of the business. And so the more experience you've gotten kind of in depth with that, the knowledge you know how to actually heal it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first few years of me doing theta healing officially, it was interesting who came to me. I draw in a whole bunch of people who had gone through such severe trauma in their childhood that they had blocked all the memories. So that was a real honor to help people release enough and feel safe enough that the memories can come back in a way that was really safe for them and that those were neutral memories instead of scary.
Right. Then they can face it and move on and let it
Mhm.
go. Hmm.
Yep, absolutely.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, I mean, you've had a very interesting, story, from the beginning. I mean, all in kind of going back when you said about the car accident, people don't really realize people having these accidents. A lot of times, these things can kind of come about.
Well, we talk about it in one of the classes, this whole concept of an initiation or having a death or coming close to death and dying, it actually comes from our shamanic roots. That back in the day when we were healing from the land and healing a little bit differently before we complicated everything with cars, there was this belief that you have to come close to death or die and come back in order to open up your gifts. And
Mhm.
so a lot of people who have their gifts open after NDEs, that's because they're actually carrying that in their lineage, that you need to have that experience in order to do that.
Wow. Kind of almost have to go through suffering to actually see the light.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But it's also really beautiful with my students to also help to break that belief that you have to suffer to see the light or that you have to suffer to grow.
Mhm.
Because it's really great when you finally get to that point in your life where like I learned a beautiful life lesson and it didn't hurt me, and you're like, oh my god,
Mhm.
that's so cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's definitely because you don't really want to plant, negative beliefs into a person's mind either. That's actually going backwards. So
Mhm.
yeah, you have to be careful there.
Absolutely. Well, that's
Yeah.
why we don't record our sessions, is we don't want to
Mhm.
we want to make sure, because sometimes the beliefs are so deep the person's completely unaware that it existed. And I
Mhm.
know when fellow theta healers work on me, I by the time the session is over, I've forgotten what we were working on and I've forgotten what the negative belief was that we've changed.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
we don't record it because we don't want that information to come back in.
Right. Trying to let it go.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, how you seeing most of the people you deal with, more one-on-one, online, or how you actually doing this?
I do most of it online. Honestly, I was doing online before doing phone sessions, even before COVID.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love doing remote work. For when I do things in person, it's usually more retreats or different experiences.
Mhm.
There's certain classes that I teach that are only in person.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about what I do is that, we can do distance attunements, you know.
Hmm.
And so we once we learn the real facts, we're all in the same presence anyway. Distance is just an illusion,
Absolutely.
you know. So but then sometimes when I tell people that who don't necessarily know, they kind of look at me funny, like, what are you talking about? I'm like, it's fine. Yeah. But tell me, I know you say you got a podcast going. How's that going?
It's going good. I started it in August. It's called Let's Get Weird Together. So it explores the fringes of different topics. So it's people who are out there, because I consider me to be a little bit out there when it comes to healing because it's not the norm yet. So people who are on the extreme edges of healing, sexuality, and also religion. And also, religion just came in later because it just keeps coming up as a topic that has an effect on sexuality and spirituality. So I'm like, we may as well include it in the conversation.
So how much is that growing? Because I find it to be a very deep situation, more than people like, because I think it makes people uncomfortable to talk about these things, but it's the elephant in the room that has to be addressed because just being honest, it has a big implication in people's mental, physical,
Mhm.
and spiritual lives that they're living.
I honestly believe that if we talk about the grossest, heaviest thing, if we talk about the hardest things that there are to talk about, it can be so powerful and it can heal so much.
Hmm.
Instead of just talking about the easy things, if we
Hmm.
just go straight for the darkest corner of the
Right.
subconscious or the darkest or people's deepest traumas and we release that first,
Right.
like life gets so easy. So that's why I love tackling these really hard topics
Hmm.
and finding people who've become experts in them and interviewing them and just bringing more of this to light. Because
Hmm.
also, too, there's something beautiful about when someone speaks their truth and someone's like, oh, I thought I was alone. That's me too. That's my
Yeah.
weird thing.
Yeah. Especially
Yeah.
when you got people who come from communities that things are kind of uniformed and then they're kind of afraid to step out in their own thought process. So when they finally can relate to someone who does, I'm sure, I know, it's a big moment for them.
Yeah. And the fear of rejection by your community is real.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is.
It is. And there's, yeah.
It goes real deep. I mean, like I said, my mother is from the South. I mean, I could do a whole podcast because but a lot of that has a lot to do with, even when people feel a certain way, they're afraid to do anything besides what everyone else is doing.
Mhm.
And, and the thing is like, there are traumas they're causing themselves by doing some of these things because they're suppressing certain things they feel. Um,
Mhm.
and I've even dealt with someone who was having an issue because they knew things were not right, but they didn't speak on it because they were trained to not speak on it. And all of a sudden they started having a little problem with their throat. Well, the
Mhm.
chakra era was actually trying to tell them that, you know, they were kind of given a blockage in their area because of what they were withholding within themselves. And
Yep.
so it can really have an effect, because people keep suppressing things that they know they because they're going along in spite of things they actually feel within themselves. So yeah, it's an ugly subject because you're digging into people's personality, things they believe truly in, and then what what you're dealing with is going back into ancestral things. So again, with I come from where these things have been passed on for, and a lot of it for negative reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And now trying to get it extricated from the unconscious mind of something that they know that is done to them, but that's all they know is just it's just it's almost impossible to deal with.
Yeah, and when we do ancestral healing, we definitely get into some really horrible, heavy situations. But when those ancestors finally find their voice and are freed, it's amazing the ripple effect it has.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's because when I first started doing ancestral work, my dad was a veteran. And so, of course, I went straight into doing war trauma healing, which is, and that's kind of amazing when you can like release one side of a conflict and bring healing. It's really beautiful how the other side, there's actually like a splashback effect and it actually heals. So it doesn't matter which side you start with.
Right. It's a ripple effect.
It's a huge ripple effect. Once we get the healing started, it can really snowball.
Well, the thing is first getting the person to become aware of it. That can be a problem, or because it's like anything, denial of a situation just only makes it intensify more. And, the more you
Mhm.
resist, the more it persists. And so,
Absolutely.
so, and these are the messages that that I'm finding myself because when I became aware, um, you know, then you go through what we call this shadow work,
Hmm.
and you start going within and start looking within yourself and start looking at unpacking you is what I call it, and unlearning the old person and relearning the new, and along the way I've even had received information that if you've gone through this, your ancestors have called you here. How do you feel about that? Actually,
That your ancestors called you here, and that's why you go through
yeah,
things.
yeah,
Um, I think I have. Yes, I agree that like a lot of things that we go through in our lives are influenced by our ancestors. Maybe not that I don't believe that they're trying to tell us what to do, but definitely we are, whether we're aware of it or not, we're all hugely influenced by everything they went through, and we are working through their positive and their negative beliefs. Because I actually think like the ancestral beliefs are some of the strongest ones. They can actually even overpower the beliefs that we have if they're strong enough. But the other component to that I've come to understand is it's not that our ancestors want to give us negative, heavy beliefs and fears, but that they're gifting us virtues and that those negative, heavy beliefs are attached to those. So that power, that energy, that adventurousness, that independence that we gained from them sort of have writing with them a negative belief of you need to be fearful of this or that.
hmm
So
right.
they're gifting us and sort of crippling us unconsciously or accidentally at the same time.
Yeah, because again, these are their beliefs, and we have to work through them.
Yeah, and those beliefs worked for them in their time,
Right.
but
But the,
it's not their
the
time anymore. So
exactly.
I also have a lot of compassion for them too, and try to understand what were you going through and why did you believe that? Not, oh my God, why did you believe that? But like, no, seriously, like I really want to understand why that worked for you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's what I had to go into because where I had to deal with, I had to come from things that come from called survival by
Hmm.
all means necessary. Everybody knows the plight of the South here in the United
Yeah.
States. And so, just even my grandfather, I didn't even know him because of things that happened in the 40s. And
Yeah.
so, it's a lot of things that my father I saw within him that he tried to deal with within himself, and he had no
Hmm.
idea how to deal with it. But with me awakening, it stopped with me. You know,
Yeah.
and so, but knowing that you got you several hundred years of survival within your body, it's the health issues, mental and physical, is just
Hmm.
people don't understand, And that's why I'm trying to get people to have to give themselves grace, because people have to, like you said, understand that these things aren't just them. They're things, on a, I kind of study epigenetic level, things that, that can kind of, that came down to you. And it's just things, that tools that were used, that were passed to you for survival mechanisms that no longer serve you anymore. You know, there are certain things in diets, within my community that, these are things that you ate because that your ancestors had to survive, but
Mhm.
no longer there anymore. But it's still within the body, it's still within the unconscious mind, and so it's still buried that deep today. you know.
And survival beliefs are huge.
hmm
They're very strong. So yeah,
hmm
700 years is a lot of stress and
hmm
trauma to
hmm
process in one
hmm
generation.
Exactly,
You're awesome.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Well, the thing is that you have to begin to start, become an example of what that, other people need to start looking at, because if not, it's that's called generational curse, um, and it just keeps going. You know.
Yeah.
So, but thanks to people like you who are doing work to kind of get people to kind of unpack some of these things. That's what's beautiful about you.
Thank you. And what I really love is teaching it, because I know that has an exponential effect. Like if I teach you and you're going to take it with your clients and so on, that,
Right,
yeah,
right, right,
that's
right.
been an amazing thing too. So I guess that's why I was laughing when I didn't know if I wanted to be a teacher, because I didn't realize that when we give people the tools that enable them, like the more tools my clients have, the faster we can heal.
Well, not just their clients, but their
Mhm.
families. They take this home to their kids. They take that
Mhm.
home to how they manage themselves, how they manage their emotional energy within their home, because these
Mhm.
things play a big role in the community. Because we get into another deal with about I don't know if you're about the consciousness field, but when you start releasing some of these energy, you raise your vibration, and this also raises the vibration of the environment. you
It
know.
sure does. It's beautiful to see the exponential effect. And
hmm
my mom, every once in a while, when I first started doing this, she would text me. She's like, "Are you healing the ancestors again?" Because she could literally feel when I was like up in the ancestry releasing things. She is sensitive
Yeah.
enough to feel it trickling down.
Wow.
And like I
Wow.
said before, I had a sister who didn't believe my job was real. And I've
Mhm.
seen her soften without me even talking to her about it, just because I've released so much of that. Because her beliefs about like, what's Marie doing? That's so weird. I know
Mhm.
that came from a different line of ancestors that she was more tapped into than I was.
Okay.
And so when
Okay.
I released those, it allowed her to release.
Oh, wow.
So I've
Triple
been
effect.
able to see in the lineage, without directly working with people, I've been able to
Mhm.
see the shifts in them because of the work I'm doing
Mhm.
with myself and the ancestors.
Wow.
Yeah.
Deep.
Yeah.
Man. That's speechless. Like, because people need to hear about this. Like, so what did your sister have to say these days?
What was so cute, a few years ago, she bought me a book, and it was by one of my favorite runic authors, because I read runes too. And she's like, and she didn't say much, but I asked her about it. She's like, "Well, I met someone who's like you," meaning
Mhm.
psychic
Mhm. Mhm.
and
Yeah.
magical.
Yeah.
And it's just she's been very softly opening up, just like, "Hey,
Uh-huh.
can I have some sage for my new house that I
Yeah.
bought?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
yeah. Yeah.
we're not going super deep, but there's all these things where I can just see her energy opening up, and she started to
Uh-huh.
ask questions. So it wasn't like we had like one deep conversation. It's just been like,
Mhm.
her very slowly coming to acceptance of who I am as a
Mhm.
healer.
Yeah. And through that, she's gaining education of herself and opening up as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like at the end of the day, people are not trying to, like, you can believe what you want to religiously, things like that. It's totally up to you how you want to go about this. This is just about helping you heal yourself, and you come to your own conclusions about how you want to, view your your relationship with God. you know.
Absolutely.
So that's why I come out, like, people know this is a science. It's not you
Mhm.
choosing a religion or something, because the spirituality world, it tends to kind of get a little murky with people.
Mhm.
And so, just like we talked about earlier, like if we can educate people and
Mhm.
understand that this is proven science. It's actually older than the science that you know about. you know, You
Yep.
know, it's not woo. You know, and you don't have to conflict in the things you have going on in your life. You know, it actually can enhance these things. It really, you know. So it's beautiful to have people like you who are able to actually educate, people on this. Hello?
Oh, there I am. Sorry.
Yeah, I think you froze for a minute.
I'm sorry.
No problem. No problem. Yeah, I was just saying it's beautiful to have you able to educate people on these things because again, I can't stress enough that people need to know more about this, that it's actually real and it's science, it's based in science. It's not something that someone's just, guessing, or just throwing things out there.
Absolutely. And I know that we're very slowly gaining more traction with people understanding that the work that you and I do is real. I know there are places like in San Diego, some of the hospitals are having Reiki healers come in.
Yeah,
And I've also heard of there's some places where they have theta healers in the ER
yeah,
to help people get people in the right space.
right. It's coming. I've heard
It's
dentist
coming.
offices having them in. So yeah, and I look forward to actually working with some of these people to trying to educate people on this to combine it with, with modern medicine, because
Yep.
you're not trying to infringe if people and your belief system has a lot to do with things, everything to do with things too. So we're not trying to actually take away what a person may feel like they're comfortable with, but we just trying to add some things that we know it works, but at the end of the day, trying to introduce some things to people that, you know, you're kind of missing, So it's just happening.
Yeah, I like to say that I believe I should be one of the members on your team. You
Mhm.
have your doctor, maybe a nutritionist if that's, maybe, someone to help with your physical body, like physical trainers.
Right.
But then you should also have people to deal with your mental and emotional health if you're going to be well-rounded.
Well, for 20 years I was strength and conditioning coach and a personal trainer. So I've been mind and body and spirit for a long time,
Mhm.
But the thing is when I started adding the more spiritual side to when I got more educated on that, I was only just scratching the surface dealing with people on a physical level, and I didn't know that. You have to deal with people in their energy system, in their emotional and their mental capacities to actually get them to manifest things on a physical level.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So I was kind of working backwards for a while, but you learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
everyone
But
has to come to it in their own way. There's no one perfect way, one right way. I've also noticed that not everybody's gifts open up in the same order.
yeah, yeah. But the
Yeah.
thing is the beautiful thing is I've always been on this journey though. Now I look at it, I'm like I've always been on this journey since I was a kid. I was always wanting to help people get better. It was kind of more on a physical level in the beginning, but when you started understanding, even as an athlete, that your mind controlled how your performance was, things start getting together, and then you understand how the universe works and things of that nature, and all things kind of say, "Oh, now this is where we're going."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I ran long distance, so the mentality of it was the most important part. I
Hmm.
knew, and even back in high school, I knew I was hitting the times that I was and breaking the records because it was all my mental strength.
All of it, all of it,
Yeah.
exactly. As a runner, I guess you know the story of the guy who broke the 5 minute mile. Once he broke it, people able to break it because they mentally knew it could be done.
Oh, that's possible? I guess I can do
Mhm.
that now.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. But that's the example I want to be to the world, though, that you can do this too. You can be your best choice. You can be the thing that what you're looking on the outside for. You can actually be that to yourself.
Mhm. And everyone's capable of healing.
Hmm. They are. They are. Exactly. So, have you written any books?
Hmm?
Have you written any books?
Oh, I am in the process of writing some books.
Tell us about that.
So, one of them is boundaries for business because I'm a business owner, but looking at how the emotional and spiritual boundaries
Mm,
actually can increase your sales and help you be a better healer. Or, it's all just for people who aren't just healers, for anyone. And
right.
then I also have one about talking to your home, so the energetic relationship to your home and how it can affect your manifestation.
Mhm,
And then
mhm.
probably one on tarot, but those are the two that are mostly done. But there's others that are coming through. This is my year to write, apparently.
Okay. So when do you expect anything to be out so we can let the audience know when to start looking for you?
I am hoping Boundaries for Business comes out by the end of November. The other ones are going to be pretty shortly after that, or
Okay.
at
Where,
least
where would they be able to find you?
Hmm?
Where would they be able to find you at?
So if you follow me of House of Kellen anywhere, like Instagram, YouTube, but I'm not that active. TikTok sometimes, but Facebook. I'm most active on Facebook and Instagram, and also my website is houseofkellen.com. And
Ah,
once the book comes out, it'll be blasted everywhere, and it will be available on Amazon too.
okay. Well, hopefully we
Yep.
have you back on again to actually help you with promotions.
That would be amazing. Then we can actually talk about the book more in detail when it's actually
Yeah,
finished.
that's the. I was gonna say, I know you don't want to go too far into it because then what's the point about the book? But yeah, but we
Well, I
definitely
mean,
want everybody.
yeah, I actually was laughing because I've been having a little bit of trouble getting one of them moving, and it's because one of the chapters literally came in last week when
Yeah,
I was hosting a retreat in Costa Rica. I'm like, oh, that's why it was sticky. I really needed a bit more information just to lock everything in. So I'm
right.
also using like a very intuitive method too to even do the writing.
Okay. Okay. Hey, let your guy do the work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely beautiful. Well, I want you to kind of give us kind of a quick some technique that some of the audience can kind of use from something that you kind of work with on your clients to kind of help them with. Let's just say letting go.
So actually what's coming up is techniques for maybe not letting go of people's energy in the moment.
Hmm.
There's something we do called an energy break, but I honestly believe because what happens is if you're super compassionate or if you had a kind of chaotic childhood, people their sense of empathy will connect to people automatically and that can put stress on the body.
Hmm.
And so, one thing that I do is something called an energy break, which is basically consciously like releasing yourself from the energy of the person you were just talking to.
Hmm.
And one way people can do that is if you close your eyes, gather your energy in your heart, and connect to Mother Earth,
Hmm.
and let that beautiful Mother Earth energy come up your body. And when it gets to your heart chakra, you sort of hold it there. And then you expand it outward and you keep expanding bigger and bigger and bigger. And you sort of imagine like everyone else's BS and feelings and thoughts and emotions on the outside of that bubble getting pushed out of your body. And you just expand that until it's bigger than you and you keep expanding it, maybe even like clean your whole house. And
Hmm.
that's a really good way to just get everyone else's stuff out of your space so you can connect to yourself.
Hmm. Hmm. See, the people have to understand that the power of your imagination and your mind creates your reality.
Mhm. It does.
And it's real. It's actually real. It works. Yeah, beautiful. This is what I'm trying to get people to understand because they don't understand that's that creative power.
We have so much power. Like
Hmm.
our ancestors' beliefs and our beliefs created our life together.
Hmm.
And since we created it, we can discreate it
Exactly.
and recreate it in a better way.
Hmm.
We just really got to
Exactly.
heal those ancestors for a lot of us because, like, yeah,
Hmm.
and deal with also the collective consciousness that we're born into.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of work to do, but you have a lot of beautiful people to work with to do it, though.
Hmm.
That's what we're here to do. That's exactly what this network is about: to expand the message, educate people about the beautiful work like you do, and things might think I'm doing as well, and we all just kind of bringing this collective because the more people get educated about these things, the more it's something that kind of becomes in the forefront of their mind instead of something that's sitting back. That's that woo stuff that like sitting back like witchcraft and all kinds of stuff that even then I have to kind of tell them that's not what you actually think it is, but that's a whole nother story. But if people don't know anything, they kind of going with what people told them and it becomes a negative belief.
Yeah, there is a lot of education we have to do around some of those, traditional practices I know have been vilified through movies and through collective consciousness. And we do that.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's the more we can do to reverse it and be like, no, these are actually really cool practices.
Hmm. Hmm.
Thank you,
Hmm.
Hollywood, for making us think that they're evil when they're not. They're
Right.
just from a tradition that you're not familiar with.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
there's so much beauty in these traditions that they're
It
just
is.
completely awe-inspiring to learn more
Yeah, it
about.
is. Well,
Yeah.
I'm also a certified hypnotist. So the first thing people
Nice.
think is that you just snap them and you're gonna hypnotize them. Like, well, actually, it's really about focusing your attention and something that TV and anything else has your attention focused and programming your mind right now. So either
Mhm.
you're really dealing with hypnosis on a daily basis. The movie has you thinking that it's something that's strange to you, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can take over Hollywood and change perceptions on a lot of different things.
Yeah, yeah. But then there are some things that they actually, that seem science fiction, but they actually in reality. Because I like to think I use the Matrix as an example.
That was a turning point in my life too. When
Yeah,
that came
yeah,
out, yeah.
yeah,
That and Inception, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I honestly do believe in science fiction. There's so much truth
Hmm.
about this
Hmm.
world that we work in. I
Hmm.
actually have notes in my phone of how different Star Trek and different Doctor Who episodes actually demonstrate
Yeah,
different things that I talk about in class. Like, oh yeah,
yeah.
here's this whole concept, but like this
Hmm.
episode of Deep Space
Hmm.
Nine really goes
Yeah,
into how we're all one.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
honestly feel that there are some science fiction writers who are tapped into this higher truth
Hmm.
and bringing forward like these different aspects of spirituality.
Well, what is actually the concept of Star Wars? Light versus dark. you
That's
know,
good.
that's the whole concept of good versus evil, light versus dark, and and that they just kind of play it. And I've even had people, because I don't know if you ever heard of, this thing called the Cossack record.
Hmm.
And I've heard people say that there's no new idea that's ever been created. These people tapping into these ideas that actually, they seem far fetched, but they have truth to them because they actually have downloaded this information.
And they're just putting it into our pop culture so that
Mhm.
we are, to soften all of us so that we can readily accept this.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
stepkid was one day was like, "Why are you quoting Doctor Strange?" I'm like, "I'm not. This is what I teach all the time." But he only knew it from Doctor Strange.
yeah. Exactly, exactly. I mean, people don't understand how the truth. Art mimicking life, basically. So, but they look at it as science fiction, but it's more reality than they actually know.
It really is. And actually, I don't know if you're familiar with Terry Pratchett.
Not really.
He's a British writer, a British humorist.
Okay, okay.
I think he's super tapped in. He has this one character called Granny Weatherwax,
Mhm.
who is she's described as she's one of the witches in the book because he writes a lot about those. And I love her attitude where she's like, all you need for magic is an egg and a string. And if you don't have that, you're fine. You can still do it.
Uh-huh.
But he
Uh-huh.
has like this really beautiful attitude towards it. It's worth a read.
Positive attitude. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing about it. People don't really realize that with Steve Jobs, he
Hmm.
actually meditated and say he came up with his ideas for his computers by downloading this information.
Well, there's also this concept of there's these laws of the universe
Mhm.
that sort of make our world. And if you have the right virtues and connect to them, that you can
Mhm.
get downloads and you can be taught things. So some people say Nikolai Tesla was
Yes.
actually channeling some of these different laws. And that's where
Yeah.
some of our leaps come through. It's not through aliens,
Right.
it's through human beings being
Right.
in the right space and
Mhm.
being the right receptacle or
Exactly.
vehicle for this information to come through.
Yeah, we like to call it tuning into the right frequency.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, and
Because
you know that.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I believe that information is open to everyone. Like all this information, this universal knowledge is available to anyone who is in the space to be able to receive
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
remember that you have the power to ask for it.
See, exactly. See, that what we're talking about, people don't actually, these are the conversations they don't know about, and they think people are just these brilliant people who just came up with this idea. It's like, no, it's not quite how it works. Like, and when they say nothing new is under the sun, they're not lying to you. Like, you just have to understand how to access this information. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I mean,
Yep.
so go ahead.
Everybody's worthy of receiving it.
That's the thing. Believing that you're worthy of receiving it. That's a whole nother story because, if you don't believe that you can, then that's true. It becomes reality. And that's the thing is that, we have this creative force within us that, it's like having $1 million in the bank and not knowing you have that $1 million. You know,
It, it's amazing to watch these moments where like something blips into your reality and you're like, that's too good to be true. And then it blips out.
Mhm, mhm,
I've seen my
mhm,
students do that where they've literally had like 7, 8 digits in their bank for a minute,
mhm.
and then they had like, oh my gosh, this
Yeah,
retraction. I'm like, is that really
yeah,
real? And then it blipped out, like, oops,
yeah,
bank error.
yeah.
But there are so many times where like, yeah, we could uncreate things through our like, is that real?
Mhm. Just non-belief of self, afraid
Mhm.
almost of using the power.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. We gotta get better than that. You know, we can't be afraid of ourselves.
I think we're getting there. I was watching a silly British reality show. It's about makeup artists, and they're like, it's so cool to see these little 19-year-olds be like, I manifested this, and just having that be part of their normal conversation.
Right,
And I
right.
was really, yeah, I'm really grateful to see what some of the really really young kids are doing these days, and
Mhm,
just the way that they're talking, at they're
mhm.
changing the dialogue.
Right,
So they've
right.
been listening to you and I, and now those of
Mhm,
us who've been like putting this into the field for so long. So it's really
mhm,
beautiful to see that. I have such hope for the future because of that.
mhm. Yes, yes, and we will continue to plant seeds for the future to grow even better.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're here for. Yeah, yeah. Well, um, actually, what we actually want to do is kind of get this you chance to tell us where you can be located as far and kind of more information about, how you can be contacted because, you have a lot of things going on. So we definitely want everybody to be able to reach
I do. And I also want to mention some things I didn't even talk about. Like I also do pet healing, just so you know.
you. Oh yeah,
I
let's get into
love
that.
it. It's something I'm really
Yeah.
passionate about. I was afraid of dogs until this came up in my field for me to do. Um,
Wow.
and so that healed my fear of dogs. And I do it remotely. I just need like a picture of the dog and we can talk to them. I do cats, birds, bees. Like
Okay.
for one client, I'm doing their entire farm of just making sure everybody's happy and okay.
Yeah.
Um,
How
but
do you go about dealing with animals?
I connect to source and I ask to speak to the animal and I talk to the higher self and just, also get psychic information about what they've been through, releasing the trauma because I've worked with a lot of dogs who are rescues. So
Mhm.
definitely making sure that they're released of their past home and all their traumas, they can settle into their new home. With cats, a lot of it's about the politics, so it takes a little bit more. Dogs are easy to work with, but cats, they're cats.
Really?
And other
So,
every animal has its own vibration. Like the bees are fascinating to work with and heal. But yeah, part of it's just being really open and working with the personality of the animal.
so what do the cats actually be doing? That's
So dogs, if you're just like, hey, you're making a human sad, please stop. They'll
uh-huh.
be like, okay, cool, right? That's
Right.
literally like how simple it can be with both dogs. Cats are like, what do you want? And they need to like reason with them. Like when my kitty had to have a surgery, she had some teeth taken out. She had to take medicine, and the vet's like, just grab her in a towel and shove it down her throat. I'm like, that feels mean. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do that because we were still negotiating our relationship. I took a tiny bit of food and I put the medicine on it, and I went up and I connected to her. I'm like, hey, just so you know, I know that you feel weird. You went through this experience. If you eat this gross stuff on the food, you're going to feel better. And just literally explained to her step by step what was going on.
Mhm.
And it only took 2 tries for her to eat it, and she was fine.
Mhm. So it takes a little more patience and a little more,
It
like you
does.
said, politics, as you say.
Well, because there's a polycule that whose cats I work with. So there's 3 people and 4 cats, and trying to get the hierarchy of cats to agree. It's been a fascinating process. Yeah.
Yeah, we deal with animals as well. So yeah, it can be quite different too. So yeah, I was just kind of interested to see how you're dealing with it.
Well,
Yeah.
and the other thing I do is like I also make sure that I clear them. Like my cat gets a clearing from me and gets energy work from me because I know that our pets come to us to heal us in very real ways. So
Mhm,
just making sure that she's getting the reciprocation and the healing back so that she has more energy to give me.
mhm, mhm. Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. So do a lot of
But
people bring
hmm?
do a lot of people bring you their animals? You have a lot of business as far as 'cause I know you just said you got a whole farm, so
That's a fun experience. Yeah, I have a few steady clients all the time with different dogs and cats and pets coming at me. So,
Yeah.
and it's nice. It's fun. It's fun work. It's like it's nice to get away from some of the trauma, which I love working on, but it's also good to have that balance in my client base of like,
Mhm.
let's just deal with the joyful things.
Right, right. Yeah,
So,
because dealing with that hard energy can be, can be it deals with your energy, you know.
yep. So it's good to have a balance. But yeah, people can find me mostly, like I said, through House of Kellen, and that's K with a K, K-E-L-L-E-N. Either through Facebook. I have a Facebook page that I keep updated with all my activities, all my different classes that I teach, or just my houseofkellen.com website. Those are the two basic ways. Yep. And yeah.
Hmm,
And if you're going
okay.
to find me on Facebook, I'm very receptive to receiving messages and answering questions. And I do discovery calls so people can, sit down with me for like 15 minutes and just ask questions about the work I do and see if I'm a good fit energetically for them.
Okay. Okay.
Because
Beautiful.
I'm not here to heal everybody, so I want to make sure people are comfortable with me.
Well, that's what we all here to do. We all have something that we bring. And so, at the end of the day, we trying to resonate with the people that resonate with us, and collectively we can heal the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's definitely beautiful having you here. We're gonna definitely have you back here to talk about the book.
Thank you. I look forward to that. I'll let you know once it's ready to go to the publishers.
The artists will be looking for it because you have a lot of beautiful information to share. So, yeah,
Right.
yeah. Well, we appreciate you joining us here today at Engine Healing Network. And as always, we appreciate our audience for joining us today, and we'll be bringing you another episode next week of Healing the World at the Energy Healing Network.
All right.